welcome back. Secret House Against the World. You guys know me and Jet. Thank you for tuning in to all of our reviews. Please hit the like, subscribe. Think about doing, joining our Patreon. We've got just very simple tiers with nothing special other than extra adoration for your support. Today, we're going to be discussing the new Buck 65 album called Super Dope. 15 songs, 40 minutes. This came out a few months ago, but I didn't listen to it when it first came out, but I heard it and I was like, you know what? It would be fucked up if this channel, Secret House Against the World, did not review a new Buck 65 album.
Yes.
Considering that I very much took the title of one of his albums and used it as the title of our YouTube show, Secret House Against the World. And we've seen people in the comments come up and be like, ha ha ha, what is your favorite Buck 65 album? And it's probably Vertex for me. Buck 65 is a Nova Scotia born and based hip-hop artist who has been putting out hip-hop for probably 3 decades now. I say about 3 decades. Abstract hip-hop, blues, folk, country, avant-garde work. He's largely associated with the Anticon collective of the late 90s and early 2000s, 1200 Hobos crew with, Mr. Dibbs and Scratch Bastard, who was just out here a few weeks ago.
Here,
Yeah, the homie Akira got a signature on a shirt from him, and he's tremendous. Also, Buck 65 is a member of the Sebutones with 6'2", I think he changed his name to like Megazoid. I don't remember. But also Zulu Nation. And I think he garnered and gained a lot of popularity in the mid-2000s with the indie alt-rock type of circuits. And throughout the mid-aughts, like him and Sage Francis, and even Soul, I think they kind of, they got a foothold with the hip-hop in there. And I have to say that I haven't been following Buck 65 since probably Kennedy Killed the Hat. Like, I just kind of, I don't want to say I lost interest, but I kind of just fell out of the circles that would talk about it. I didn't know any new albums that were coming out. Maybe Bikes for 3 is kind of later, but I am a huge fan of Buck 65. How do you know him?
He's existed in the periphery of my listening. I've been aware of him for a while. I think he might have shown up in a video game soundtrack, probably like a Tony Hawk when I was a kid or whatever. And then, of course, when we named this channel Secret House Against the World, I went back and revisited that album, which came out in like 05, 06.
I don't really care for it.
I love that album.
Yeah?
I actually really, really enjoy that album. I like the blend of folky, country-ish, alternative rock he's got going on with this kind of, cowboy delivery that he does across the record, while also there's just a lot of really intelligent and well-considered and deeply kind of artistic choice of words on there. It's an album I like quite a lot. I think the approach to melody and construction of song, like songcraft, is absolutely top notch on there. So to go from listening to that album quite a lot since we started the channel to this, I think is quite an interesting charting of his evolution and scope as an artist.
Yeah, as I rifled off earlier, there are a lot of genres that he's kind of done. Like listening to this album really made me reflect on how influential Buck 65 was to me. I first got into his work back in 1999 with the Vertex album. Somebody put the Centaur song on a mixtape for me, as we did back then in trade mixtape, and it was just hilarious and flat out dope about being a fucking centaur. You know what I mean? And since then, I've always kind of marveled at his DIY one-man show approach. and his kind of wit, creativity, and these crate dug sonic amalgams that he put together, coupled with really interesting off-kilter references and odd media sample pulls. You'll hear like a William S. Burroughs sample or a poem from a friend on his on his answering machine. And you know, the way I cultivated my personality was kind of similar to the way he arranged his albums. If you look at any of my piece books, it's probably going to be like Vertex or Square. It is like this mismatch, or even my bullet journal that I keep. It's all over the place, and it is a one-man show, and
Yes.
I just really love that about him. And I don't think that I'm the only one. While he isn't somebody that is necessarily championed on any of your top 100 MCs list, there is a kind of deep adoration from the independent underground hip-hop community for Buck 65. If you go back to Milo's album, Rap Ferreira, he's got a song called like Buck 65's Knee, and I'm willing to go out on a limb and call, you know, Rap Ferreira the last Bloatian. He's kind of the last Anticon cat to me. And that one man, like, I produced all of it, I dug all the samples, all of these odd media things are a part of my personality, is something that I love. If I had to think about it, I'd probably say Buck 65's Vertex album is a top 50 personal album for me. And on the right Wednesday, it might be top 30, but it is very much up there as this really incredible piece of work. And this being the 50th year anniversary of hip hop culture, it's kind of a cool album to drop this year.
Yes. And I guess you didn't listen to last year's King of Drums.
I didn't know it came out.
Okay, yeah. So last year he also put out a record called King of Drums, which very much feels like the predecessor to this album. But this album, more than maybe anything I've ever listened to ever, is just a really fascinating look at this. Like, he's created this very modern, and I don't even know how to talk about this record. So
It's
I guess we'll just get into it,
undiluted b-boy bravado.
B-boy bravado,
Yeah.
like scratching everywhere. You can practically hear the spray cans rattling around in backpacks, you know, notepads, and some very, very versatile lyrical gymnastics going on.
Yeah. It's
And-
like a hip-hop head's, like a real hip-hop head, like a true school head's kind of wet dream of a sound that didn't
never
really existed.
No, yeah, it's a simulacrum of.
You know, when I was talking to you, it like if we can take a slight detour, I was thinking about Mark Fisher in Hauntology.
Yes.
Hauntology with an H,
Hauntology, yeah.
which is kind of, you know, I didn't go back and reread up about hauntology to prepare myself for this. It's a concept that I'm loosely familiar with, reading Mark Fisher and Derrida, and it's a kind of a leftist critique of our positionality within history and the type of culture that emerges. And a hauntology is almost like it is a result of neoliberalism and our constant repeating of nostalgia to kind of regain similar results to how we felt about things. So if you have these kind of tropes from eras, like in the 60s you can recognize the sound, the 70s, 80s, but as we kind of move into the modern age, you know, post 90s, the kind of music that was made, it became almost dislocated from its position in time. And hauntology, let me see if I have any notes that can really kind of pin it down. There was never really a time where this type of music existed.
No.
And it reminds me of a hauntological kind of musical approach. There's a genre of music, I think, called hauntology, which I'm not talking about that at all. But it reminds me of that because he takes the kind of aesthetic values of a lot of this type of hip hop culture and the ethics of the hip hop culture, and kind of just recreates a feeling that is very b-boy. It is very like 100% sampling on this. There's no MIDI, there's no fucking, these are all deeply dug breaks by a person who has probably an encyclopedic knowledge of it. There is a plethora of kind of cultural pinpointing through the celebrity points that he takes. Also, the refrains from hip hop, there is using similar breaks for similar purposes that were done in the past, but the album is fucking a new thing. I've never, like, you hear a song, it's like, oh, this kind of reminds me of like some fucking, you know, digging in the crate shit, or this reminds me of something that is like, you know, 1985. Even though 1985, this is the era before albums. You know what I mean? This is the single driven part. And the golden age of 88 didn't sound like this. And in the second golden age of like 93 or whatever didn't sound like this. But it has all of the things that if you had to describe to like an algorithm of what hip hop is, it could create something like this. But it's so nostalgic but wholly new. And that's what I mean by there's a hauntological aspect about this album that is, to me, one of the great albums of the year. Like, I live with two B girls. You know what I mean? My wife is a breaker, my daughter is a breaker, and I'm an old man who's broken a lot of I'm like 58 years old in b-boy years, right? I'm 40, but I'm old. And this album, it's fucking like, I turn it on and it's just like, oh yeah, it's time to fucking break. Oh yeah,
it spins under a bridge.
This whole album had me in like a 1992 b-boy stance, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I wasn't there for that. I was there for B-Boy Summit in 96, but you know what I mean? Like, this album is weirdly it's super dope, but it is the most hip-hop album that I've maybe ever heard that is not like, I don't know how to describe it. It's fucking weird. It is a weird project. It's great. It's incredible. The kind of intention that the attention to detail, the kind of immaculate timing of the way that he puts these songs together, the kind of there's like, oh, do I know that break? Or wait, what is that break? Like, samples, you have like, man, it's something special is really going on in this album. I feel like I have a lot to say. Let me slow down and see if we can kind of get back to like pinpoint. I don't know. I'm going on.
Let's talk about the rapping, because I feel like we've talked about the general sonic template and like the canvas, but like, you know, the actual rapping on here. I mean, Buck 65 is just styling, like from start to finish, just backflip after backflip after backflip, and that's something that I've like had issues with in other records we've reviewed before. That was something I didn't like about the Aesop Rock, is that I felt like it was kind of just verbal gymnastics without kind of the broader songcraft to back it up. But I think due to the nature of this album, like how it sounds and what it's kind of setting out to accomplish, or at least what I think it's setting out to accomplish, it doesn't really bother me. It just feels like it's part of this broader celebration even of hip hop as a genre, and you know, going back to the earlier points in the genre's existence, and even the points where, like, on any other record, if I heard SUPER, that's super dope, like I would be like, what are you doing? Like, why are you spelling, you know, in 2023? But it's just so like conducive to the moment and the image that's being created on these tracks and on this album.
Yeah, the lyrics, you know, Buck 65 has always been very poetic and very kind of capable MC. On this album, he does some of the best rapping that I've heard him do. He's got like a very whimsical observation, like kind of silliness to him that is very fun. But on this, he goes off on different flows in relationship to what the music is doing, what he's crafted the music to do, and he packs like, man, and it's not just like, some of it is just silly. Some of it is like, it's not like, oh man, he's making deep, insightful things.
He's just doing stacking that sounds real good.
Yeah, and it's funny and it's great, but he'll also do things that I hadn't heard him do before. Like, he leans into this hard assonance style. I'd have to scroll through the notes of which song it was. I wrote it down, but he goes through like a hard assonance style with like an ASH kind of ash type of approach, and he just kills it for like basically the whole song. These are things I hadn't heard him do before. And the kind of bounce, he is kind of folky in a lot of his works. It's kind of like slowed down Leonard Cohen, like, you know, speaking, you know, like picking up dimes with a catcher's mitt, like very poignant and interesting things. But on this, he's bouncy, he's fun. It has that 80s kind of party vibe aesthetic.
Is he pitching his voice up? Like,
no, he sounds the same to me.
He sounds like that, right? It's just obviously on some of the more folky stuff, you know, especially on Secret House Against the World.
It's a little bit like grimy,
you know, this is the hammer that killed John. You know,
like,
sex cinema politique. There's a grandiose there that is not on this album. You know, he sounds like he's 18 again.
Well, he's like, you know, the last time I saw him perform was like maybe South by Southwest. And if you grab that flyer right there.
This one here?
Yeah. So, yeah, I was right. So this flyer was from a show that I went to in maybe 2001. And October 28th, 2001, this was supposed to be in Hawaii at a spot called Pango Pango. And Buck 65 was supposed to be there, but for some reason it wasn't there. It was just Dose Soul Pedestrian and 6'2" in jail. But he was supposed to be there. And I've seen him perform a few times, and I talked to him a little bit, but he was like a giant, and I was just like, you know, like whatever. But he sounds like that. He sounds like this in person when I've spoken to him. He's a weird dude, and I think that it's off-putting. Like, his voice might be off-putting for a lot of people, but if you can get past that, man, he says some like really funny shit on here too, and it's also like some serious shit. Like the evil god is like the dark side of modern times, war, politics, news, and it's really good. But he also says some shit like, I'm not an alpha male, I'm more like an alfalfa male, little rascal, official radical, I shall prevail. He's funny and bouncy all over this record, and it is like some real b-boy shit. As I said, the beats are all Doug records, all sample driven, which is like, he's one of the guys like Madlib who really made me appreciate the crate digger, like the importance of finding your own records and to kind of keeping some of them secret, and the kind of the kind of academic aspect of the hip hop head that's able to be like, oh, I know that break, like, oh, you use that. And this album has got that. Like, the record digger, they'll listen to this and be like, holy shit, he just flipped fucking 8 different breaks on a single song seamlessly with fucking his own. He does the scratching on this shit too.
Oh, okay, well, that was him as well.
He does the cuts. He does everything on this album. It is like a one-man. This is the eternal b-boy shit. Like, this is the exemplification of the b-boy hip-hop. And I want to say b-boy, I'm not necessarily talking about a break boy. I'm talking about a hip-hop human being. He exemplifies that shit. The precision in kind of like Mano no Aware. Track number 2.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like a funky break, and this is one of the most intentional and precisely timed joints I've maybe ever heard. The way that he'll say, like, moving my hand like I'm playing the piano, and then you hear a piano sample come in, and then he moves down and he says, like, the bass goes deep and then it drops, and then you'll hear a bass drop, and then he's like something about chickens and you'll hear a chicken squawk, and then he ends the verse like after the horn blows, and then it's a horn sample. Like, the meticulous craftsmanship of this album is just something to behold, and every single song on this album has the same level of like craftsmanship. He doesn't fucking phone in any of the beats. He doesn't phone in any of the bars. He doesn't phone in any of it. It really is this high tier fucking full blown hip hop music that is just this weird retro futurism, this hauntology. Man, Challenge to the Underground, he's a white dude. And I love how like they have that one sample that it starts off the news reporter who's like, "I so pale." And he just drops all of these funny, whimsical things in the music that just makes it a really fun. This is the summer album for me right now. Like every time I play in the house, my daughter starts hitting a 6-step and top rocking, and even my wife is like, "Word, let's get it, let's go." "All right, daddy, jump in." I'm like, "Oh, my fucking back hurts. I'm not doing that." But man, I love this album. It's fun. I really think my man Cake, Chocolate Cake Desk.
Oh, yeah,
I
Cake,
think he
you're
will
gonna fuck
really
with this
enjoy
heavy.
this album. And I just can't, I could go on and on about so many of these songs. Super dope, like you said, SUPERDO. Yeah, it's kind of like corny, but it's also the best fucking thing to kind of bob your head to and be like, yeah. He says I'm a bona fide silly person, and it's true. Like, man, I wonder if I should play like Endless Counterattack. The tempo changes, the way he rides the beat is so good. Train music, the guitar blare. Train music is the one where he goes on this crazy type of poetic device assonance run. That's really like it's not multi. They're not multis. They're not like a Cool G rap type of thing, or like a Necro or fucking you name it. But he goes the fuck off just rapping. And if I put my shit on Spotify, I won't be paid. So abort mission, codify Roe v. Wade. He is an interesting dude, man. If you met him, like the things that he has to say about like the deep dive of celebrity things that there's probably like 50 celebrity mentions on this.
Yes.
More than a Black Thought album, right? And like the people he's bringing up, I'm just like, oh, bro, that's fucking like, I had no idea. He has like this wealth of knowledge. He seems like a person who's interesting.
Yes.
He is a person who is interesting.
Person,
This album is so good. When I was writing down my favorite songs, I was just like, I don't know how to, like, what are my top 3? Passport to Infinity sounds like some EPMD or Digging in the Crates early 90s shit. I could hear like Grand Poobah or like somebody rapping over that type of shit. Forbidden Words, I like to scratch some high speed b-boy shit. The drums are hard as fuck. Gift from the Sky, the Monster Anarchy Zone, which is the last track of the album, like the drums are hard, but they're not hard like 808 hard because they're sampled fucking drums. And it's like he's scratching, I dominate break loops. And he's scratching, cutting all this shit in. I get a lot accomplished working in a modest office, married to the oddest goddess, learning from the conscious prophets. Like, he's just funny, dude. Like, I'm giving off a pleasant glow. Tell your mom I said hello. I also give off a pleasant glow.
Sure.
Like, man,
Absolutely.
This is some real super hard b-boy shit. I'm not quite satisfied about how I explain hauntology. If you guys want to talk about that more, want some book recommendations, I definitely got it. I've read the Mark Fisher book like fucking 10 years ago. I don't I should have watched YouTube videos or brushed up on it. But yeah, this is a retro futurism of a past that didn't really exist, but it's here. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, if you like vaporwave and plunderphonics and stuff like that, this is like, what if that was real? Favorite tracks, I guess, for me, Monster Anarchy Zone, super dope, the title track, and Mono no Aware, because I'm not a Buddhist, but I'm really into, so Mono no Aware is like an awareness, as it were, or like an understanding of the impermanence of worldliness, worldly things, Shogyo Mujo in Japanese as well. And I feel that in this record, like, this taking of all these things from the past and making them new and refreshing them.
A temporal disjunction of a nostalgia for a lost future. Yeah. But did you ever hear that collab album Mono no Aware with all the different producers? It's like
there's a lot of things called Mono no Aware.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put you
somebody very famous illegally sampled it a while ago, maybe Kanye or something.
Word.
It was a thing.
Yeah. Shout out to 2Mex. Shout out to all the people mentioned on this album. This album is just really fun, and it really is just.
It's a good time.
It's fucking hip hop.
It's hip hop.
It's like so many things are hip hop, but there are not many things that are more hip hop than this. Yeah. by a white dude from Nova Scotia who's been holding it down for hip hop culture for 30 years. He was a very important person in kind of my development of ethics, and also just kind of that DIY. He really does exemplify it on a way that I just am fascinated. Listen to Man Overboard, listen to Vertex, listen to Square, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. The variety, the fucking variety. This guy is he's one of the people that we should be championing. I highly recommend putting some money into his pocket for this. Fucking great.
Thank you for the title of our channel.
Fucking $1.65, man. I wonder, I don't have any $1.65 on this phone because I took all my music from the SIM card off, but maybe I'll put something at the end. Because, yeah, I don't care if we get copyright struck for that shit, man. Fastball swaying like a Caribbean. Yeah, Buck is fucking great.